I think a lot of us worry way too much about making good drawings look bad. And honestly, what we should be doing is the opposite. We should be trying to make bad drawings look good. Now, that sounds weird, but I feel like if you're someone who starts like a drawing that looks half decent, and then suddenly you like tense up because now you're afraid of the next line that you have to put down because it might mess it up. I think this video is really going to help you because, the thing is that what actually makes drawing fun is the fact that we get to play, right? It's the act of play. It's like literally having fun with it. And that's the whole idea of play is that you make mistakes and then just move on. This is literally what play means. At least for me, this is what play means. You play a game, you mess up, you laugh about it, you try again, you play with friends, or you play with ideas, you play with the concept of things. There's no pressure at all. But suddenly, like when we want to learn how to draw, we kind of we lose that. We're trying to make something good, and then when it's not good or when it's not about to be good, we quit or we start over and we overthink it. And suddenly drawing stops feeling like playing and it becomes like we need to perform in a certain way. And I think what I've learned and honestly just stolen from artists like Kim Young-gi and artists like Karkopinski is that they don't really fight the mistakes that they're making. They're actually they embrace them. They make them part of the process, which is so valuable. And that's how they bring back play into the process of drawing. Now, before you do anything else, make sure that you click the link in the description and get our free ebook. This book is absolutely fantastic. It gives you an insight into primarily what you'll be learning in our Artwod Beginner Road and applying, and it will give you these aha moments into how we at Artwod make you intuitive at perspective and how we really help you better to draw from imagination in a very approachable manner, especially our staple unique approach to form manipulation that you won't learn anywhere else on how to really look at form, how to be able to manipulate form that then turns into actual believable things that you can draw from imagination. We sort of want to unveil some of the secrets we have at Artwod on how to better get people into learning to draw from imagination. That's what this book is for. That will naturally kind of give you a hunger to do more, as it should, because drawing is awesome, especially when you can do it from imagination. Click the link in the description, get this book. It's truly awesome, and it's free. There's this exercise I really like to do sometimes. I'll draw a figure and I'll try to draw a character, and let's say, I'm going to have to do this a little bit faster than what they originally do, but let's say it's like a character with a hat like this, and he has some hair and like a nose and maybe a beard like this, like that, and then some lips and then a chin. There we go. And then we'll get into like the neck, right? And I'll draw a little beard like this, and we get into the neck, and then I'm like, I'll give him like a little bit, maybe like a chef's attire, and you're still like onto these proportions kind of thing. You still want to sort of nail the proportions, and then suddenly you draw like this sleeve, and then you draw the arms coming out of it, and then suddenly that's like the arm is like way too long, and you're like, uh-oh, right? You get like this stress, you're like, oh no, I'm gonna ruin this, or I'm gonna mess this up. And what you basically then do is you take a pause, you take a moment, and you're like, okay, let's just work with it, right? Let's see if I can, maybe if I add a bit of clothing to it, it might already be less of an issue, right? Like that. And then maybe He's leaning forward like this. And then his other arm is like equal in length. So now I have to sort of match it. So his other arm will be like over here. Maybe he's holding something. So there's this other arm, and maybe you can also give it a sleeve so that it's less obvious that I'm making all of these mistakes. And, maybe there's this apron that's attached to it. Right. And so maybe the proportions of his legs are like, maybe you're bending it. It's like, oh, way off again. Oh, no, I'm making another mistake. But instead of sort of worrying about this outcome, you're like, okay, this is an interesting challenge. Maybe I can work with the fact that, these legs are going a little bit crooked, and maybe I can just exaggerate that and just run with it, and maybe give him some socks and work with this sort of weird perspective that I have going on now, because now I have to embrace it, right? So that's what I do, like this, and then of course those other legs also have to follow, right? So I'm embracing sort of the mistakes that I'm making, and all the while trying to think like, I'm having fun. It doesn't necessarily always have to be super accurate what I'm doing. As long as I'm having fun with what I'm doing, that's more important, right? So I'll get this. There we go. And then the hands are definitely off 100%, but I could always still try to make it work by doing something like this. It doesn't look that good at all, but I can maybe I can do something like this, cover it up a little bit. No one's the wiser. There we go. We'll add a bit of things here like that. Maybe add some things here. Add a bit of folding like that. There we go. All right, so we got this like apron thing. Maybe he's got hairy legs. Nothing about this is like really good at all. But I'm still trying to make it work. And I think that's the most important part, is like you're trying to still have fun with it. And this is just a drawing, right? You can always throw it away. No one's going to care. Maybe you're going to care, but it's not that big of a deal. You can always make another drawing. And I think that's what we often forget, is like, oh no, it always has to be a good result. While in reality, like, I have no idea what he's doing with this, right? Um, Maybe he's holding maybe this because I got this scene from Kim Young-gi here that's about chefs. So it's definitely inspired by him. There's a big pot that he's working on. The stove makes no sense in this case. So I'm really gonna have to. I'm really going to have to make this work somehow, right? And then that's the sort of challenge you give yourselves. Like, can I make this work, right? In order to make this perspective work, I have to sort of draw it through. So actually, it's not right that I've drawn this part of the character, but it doesn't really matter. You just sort of work with it, you wing it, and then you continue. I'm not going to finish this entire drawing, but like the point is that you accept the fact that, hey, I'm going to be making mistakes left and right, but every time I make a mistake, I'm just going to try and course correct, right? And I think you can make that a little easier on yourself by first doing actual studies, right? So I did literal copies of Kim Young-gi to sort of give me this confidence of like, oh, I can adopt this line work and it works for me, and I can see how I would tackle this because I don't know how Kim Young-gi started these drawings. I'm like, I would start them here. And then I have a bit of confidence of starting my own char- character or figure in this case, but still embracing the fact that I'm going to make mistakes. This is just play. It's all about having fun, and it's all about just seeing like how far I can get and how interesting I can make this while I'm still making these mistakes. So I think that's the part we often really, really don't do anymore, is that we so over obsessed with getting a good result is that as soon as we made the first mistake, we're like, guess that's it. And we stop that drawing and we quit it. Well, I think the healthiest part of it is that you you enjoy this process of drawing. That's the reward. Is that you get to draw is the reward. And then every time you make a mistake, you actually, and I think this is the healthiest mindset as well, you try to course correct, because trying to course correct, this is where you learn so much, because this is literally problem solving. You created the problem. Now, how you're going to solve it. And every time we avoid that problem solving part, we actually skip a lot of learning potential. And that's what I said, and that's what I meant when I said like that's the reason people like Kim Young-gi and Karkopinski can make such accurate drawings as well, is because they made all the mistakes and work with them. And even then, when they go and draw something very accurately, they still make mistakes, but they know how to micro course correct and make it work. But if we don't train this, if we don't practice this, this is where we usually, miss sort of this key part of enjoying the process of drawing. And two, the fact that we're not winging it all the time, or for a lack of a better term, half-assing it. And what I mean by that is like we often, as soon as we start making mistakes, especially digitally, we're like, oh yeah, okay, this is Roman, and I'll just start scribbling until I can find something that works. Well, in reality, like you make a mistake and then you still, as deliberate as you were before, you continue your drawing and just work with that mistake. And I think that's what keeps artists like Kim Young-gi so good, because they're constantly like practicing this mindset of turning mistakes into something usable. It's kind of like failing forward, but with more curiosity and less ego. It's more about, you're not attached to the thing being right. You're just having fun with figuring it out. It's that figuring out, that play aspect again. So say you're drawing a figure and the legs are like way too long, or the arms are doing something weird or impossible. Don't stop drawing. Don't quit. Just keep going. Add structure, add design, add some costuming, cover it up a little bit creatively, whatever you need to do to make it feel good again. And then if you really want to mess around, draw another figure next to it, right next to it, that it's basically adopting all of the same mistakes as that other figure, so that everything sort of now feels like it's purposeful, like it's aligned. Kim Young-gi did this a lot, because when everything shares the same flaws, it suddenly looks intentional, which is ironically a good drawing. So it looks like a stylistic choice. And I think, weirdly enough, this makes the act of drawing more fun again. And this is, or for me, this was one of Kim Young-gi's superpowers. He could literally make mistakes and make them look like design decisions. And that was the power of his ability to draw and play while drawing. He just made everything look like it belonged. And I really think that is because for him, the act of drawing was the reward. It was never about the result. It's the act of drawing that made it rewarding for him. And I think for most of us, when we start drawing, we already judge the outcome before the drawing even exists. We're thinking this better turns out good because I'm spending my time here, you know? And that's when we start fighting or we start like tightening up, we hesitate, we do too many layers or we start over too much and we eventually quit. And if you go into thinking like, all right, this is probably going to be a mess. It's going to suck, but let's just see what happens. You immediately remove all of that pressure. You can actually enjoy the process again. And I think the funny part, here's the irony, is because you've already accepted that it might fail, that it might be a bad drawing, you don't really get disappointed anymore. And therefore, your mind sort of relaxes. And ironically, those are often the drawings that end up being your best drawings because you're still focused, you know, you're still trying. And this is important. You're not half-assing it, but you're also not forcing it. So you're just playing. You're trying to fix things, adjust things, keep creating. And I think that is such a crucial, important point. And that's where real creativity usually shows up. So, you know, the next time you sit down to draw, then try it. Set your brain to just play mode. Accept all of the failures and mistakes and horrible things you're going to make because it will happen. And then just see what happens when you actually embrace those mistakes instead of fighting them. Try to correct them creatively and enjoy that process. Because when you stop chasing like this needs to be good and you start chasing the fun aspect of drawing, suddenly everything becomes what it always was meant to be with drawing. It becomes play. It becomes enjoyable. It becomes relaxing again. It's not sort of this pressure of making something good. There needs to be a performance here. No, it's the act of drawing and the aspect of making mistakes along the way should also be rewarding because when you play a game, you don't play perfect games, right? You make mistakes, but you still enjoy it. And I think drawing, when you treat it the same way, really becomes fun. And ironically, it becomes more productive as well. So, with that said, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.